What's going on, everyone? I'm the casual reviewer. I'm the fine line between critic and casual viewer. And can I just start with saying, what a beautiful year for film. I mean, 2019 is probably the best year for film since 2015. I don't know, not like that's a crazy amount of time, but like, it might even be the best film year of the decade. I don't know. All I can say is I had 14 honorable mentions. I kind of had to split it up. And there's even a few films that people raved about that I didn't even get to see, which normally any film that anyone raves about or is just generally popular, I see them all. At least the last 3 years I have seen over 100 films, still didn't get to see all the films that I wanted to. For instance, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Waves, A Hidden Life. And Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I've heard so many amazing things, like pretty much every critic has seen it, and every single one of them says it's amazing. So the fact that it wasn't even nominated for Best Foreign Film is super strange for me, because even though I didn't see it, obviously I just said, but I expected it to be nominated even for Best Picture. I mean, and it wasn't nominated for anything. So I'm really surprised about that, probably the biggest surprise for me. How I'm gonna structure this video is I'm going to go through like 8 of honorable mentions, just rapid fire, and then I'm gonna go through 10 and 2, and then my last like 5 honorable mentions that were kind of in my top 10 close to the end of the year, and they just ended up falling out. And then I'll have my number 1. I think it's time. Let's go through the honorable mentions. At least the rapid fire honorable mentions. I'm gonna look at my sheet because there's no way I'm gonna just off the top of my head. I'm not that good. And so here we go. Ready? Rapid fire in 3, 2, 1. Lego Movie, Shazam, Booksmart, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Loose, Jojo Rabbit, The Report, Honey Boy, and Uncut Gems. All films that I liked, were never really on my top 10. Let's get into my number 10.
You have a brother in the 2nd Battalion.
Yes, sir.
They're walking into a trap. Your orders are to deliver a message, calling off tomorrow morning's attack. If you fail, it will be a massacre.
Let's talk about this.
All right, 1917. 1917 is a great film about 2 soldiers. They're 2 British soldiers in 1917 during World War I. And originally they were ordered to attack the Germans because they thought the Germans were just retreating and giving up. However, after they have an aerial shot come through, it looks like Germans are retreating to lure the British army into an ambush. So these 2 soldiers have given the mission to relay a message to the front line to tell them they need to pull back on their attack and they need to retreat because they're going into an ambush. And if they don't get there in time, 1,600 men will die. And among those 1,600 men is one of the soldiers' brothers. Really intense film, and just it's not the first film to make it look like it's one seamless shot. Now it's a seamless shot, there's a part where it fades to black, some time goes through, and then it starts back up again, and it's just another one seamless shot. But for a war film like this, it just ups the intensity, and you feel like you're a 3rd soldier with them. Sam Mendes just does a phenomenal job with the directing here. And Dean Charles Chapman and George McKay were so good in this film. They're so good. There's another character, I don't want to give it up. At the end, he has a really good short part. I really appreciate what the film did. Thought it was great, and because of that, it's my number 10.
이 좋은 실력으로 왜 미대는 맨날 떨어지냐?
아이씨 죽을래.
저는 이게 위조나 범죄라고 생각하지 않아요.
참으로 시의적절하다. 부자들이 원래 참 잘 속아.
사모님이 뭐랄까.
Number 9. Parasite. Parasite is a foreign film from South Korea. It is about a poor family that cons their way into working for a rich family, and they actually find some secrets within the rich family's home, which then starts to make things spiral out of control, kind of. And this twist is so good. It's so amazing, so original. I have to look at the names. Kong Ho Song specifically, he's really good. He's the father, the wife of the poor family, and then Yao Jong Jo. I hope I'm saying it right, I'm probably butchering it, but she is the mother, wife of the rich family, and both of them have a lot of time and have some really, really strong moments and strong scenes, and it it's like I said, it's so original, it's so beautifully shot, and just what it's saying, the underlining meaning of the film, of like classes and just status, and how, you know, the poor people are treated and how they act versus, you know, the richer, the wealthier. It's really good film. Bong Joon-ho did such a phenomenal job, and I can't wait to see more films from him. I know he's done a few other films that I need to catch up on, like Snowpiercer. I think he did Okja. But some really good films from what I hear, and I really love this one. And I really hope more people start watching these foreign films, because there's been a lot of good ones in the last couple of years, like The Guilty, now this. And if you want to kind of ease your way into it, watch Inglourious Basterds, one of the greatest films of all time by, and it's by Tarantino, so if you like him. And then half of it is kind of in French and German, and then the other half is still English. So, you know, you can kind of slowly build your way into getting into those foreign films, because a lot more great films are coming out, and they're foreign films. So, like The Farewell as well, it came out this year, which a lot of people loved. It wasn't, you know, the best to me, but a lot of people loved it. Good story, good acting. Anyway, that's why it's my number 9.
You don't know what you're into down here in Alabama when you're guilty from the moment you're born.
God.
Mr. McMillan.
We done here.
Mr. McMillan, please.
I was just about to give up when I got a call from a Harvard lawyer looking to start a legal center for inmates on death row.
I actually recorded my top 10 and this wasn't in it. And then I wanted to re-record my top 10 today. And before today, though, like a couple days ago, I saw this film, Just Mercy. And I'm really good that I saw, or I'm glad that I saw it before I re-recorded, because this is just such a good, emotional film. Now, it's based on a true story of Brian Stevenson, who's played by Michael B. Jordan, and he's a Harvard graduate. He gets government funding to start the Equal Justice Initiative, this nonprofit organization where he helps people that were falsely accused and put on death row get free. There's like 3 separate times in this film where it's just so emotional and so well done. There's one particular sequence that actually didn't have Jamie Foxx or Michael B. Jordan. I can't remember his name. I thought I was prepared, but I guess not as prepared as I thought I was going to be. But anyway, his name is Herbert in the film, and he's another inmate on death row, and there's just a whole sequence with him that's so sad, so gut-wrenching, and but it's so well done, so well shot and paced, and man, it really, really good movie. Michael B. Jordan, his best performance, even better than Fruitvale Station. I think it's his best performance that he's done to this day. And Jamie Foxx was so good, so emotional. You could see a man going from hopelessness to, you know, slowly getting more hope as the movie goes on. So I really recommend this film. It's really underrated. No talks at all for the Oscars, no nominations, nothing. And I'm really surprised at that. Wasn't the highest rated amongst critics. It was like an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, but 99% for the casual audience. So I think you'll like it if you watch it. Most people did. Anyway, with that being said, that's my number 8.
If we can look at ourselves closely, we can change this world for the better. We all need grace. We all need mercy.
Your grandma tells me her grandson's some fancy environment lawyer down in Cincinnati.
I am a corporate defense attorney.
So?
I defend chemical companies.
Well, now you can defend me.
How many did you lose?
190.
190 cows.
You tell me nothing's wrong here.
Number 7, another true story. It's about Robert Bilott. Bilott, I think is his name. He's a defense attorney for a large chemical corporation, and he gets these tapes, and this farmer comes into his office to tell him that he suspects that the DuPont company is dumping chemicals in his rivers, which in turn is killing his cows. And at first, unconvinced, he decides just to take it because this guy is from his old town in West Virginia, and he's also neighbors to his grandmother. So he's like, you know what? All right, fine, I'll take it. Find evidence that this is untrue, and then just kind of move on. But as he researches further and further, he realizes that this chemical is actually being dumped in the rivers, and it's affecting more than just the cows, but even to this day, it's affected, and it's in like 99% of all humans living, even today. Like, based on a true story, and it's from a chemical through Teflon. So obviously, I'm sure you've heard of what that is, and we've all consumed something that was, cooked in pans that were made of Teflon or whatever the situation is. Pretty much everyone used it, especially like in the 90s through the early 2000s, and so yeah, it's scary to think about this chemical that's in our bodies that our bodies cannot break down. It's like impossible for our bodies to break down. And so now a lot of the causes of diseases is thought out to be this chemical, which I know there was a big article that came out about this, but I really didn't know the extent of how bad this was. And man, it's incredible. As far as the movie itself, there's a little bit of flaws. Anne Hathaway was good, but her part wasn't really necessary. Her character wasn't super necessary. She didn't really move this story forward, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves, when you just have a character or a subplot, whatever, that doesn't move the story forward at all. But Tim Robbins was really good in it. Mark Ruffalo was great in it. No spotlight, but he was still really good. And I'm just a sucker for these investigative journalist films like Zodiac and like Spotlight. That's what this film is, and that's why it's my number 7.
He was willing to risk his job, his family, for a stranger who needed his help.
The system is rigged. They want us to think it'll protect us. We protect us. We do.
Carroll Shelby.
Maybe.
Lee Iacocca, Ford Motor. Suppose Henry Ford II wanted to build the greatest race car the world's ever seen, to win the 24 hours of Le Mans. What's it take?
Well, it takes something money can't buy.
Money can buy speed.
What in about speed? You need a pure racer behind the wheel of your car. That's Ken Miles.
Number 6, once again, another true story. It is based on Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles. Carroll Shelby was a racer back in the day, and he raced in the Le Mans race, which is this race that I want to say is in France. I think it's held in France, but it's a 24-hour race. And Ford decides to pick him up because he was a winner in the past, and Ford really wants to become relevant in these races, and Ferrari always beats them. So he's like, you know what, we're gonna hire Shelby, and then Shelby hires Ken Miles, a friend of his, and also who he thinks is the greatest racer today, most passionate about cars and racing. So he decides to hire him. And however, Ford is like this prestigious company. They want to look professional. Ken Miles is kind of the opposite of that, not really well kept up, doesn't really care what he says, kind of a hothead, and is, Ford doesn't really want him to be the face. So there's a struggle of Ken Miles being a really good friend of Shelby, and Shelby wanting to work with Ford and really wanting to help Ford become relevant, but then Ford not really wanting Ken Miles. And it's a really good story. Matt Damon and Christian Bale were great. I honestly feel like the reason neither of them were nominated was because they were both put up for acting, and so they probably split votes, even though I think Christian Bale was better. He did have a more showy role, but Christian Bale was phenomenal. He's my favorite actor living today, so I mean, maybe it's a little biased or whatever, no, but everyone said he was great, and they were both great. But either way, I think this film is one that everyone will like. I don't like racing, but this film, the pacing of it, the dialogue, everything was so on point that I was interested from beginning to end. And it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think. Not a single time was I bored. And I hate films where it's just like car chases and, car goes right, then car goes left, then car goes right, then car goes left. And it's just like really annoying, but they do it so well in this film, and there's just other conflict in this film that just keeps me interested. Josh Lucas, menacing as just kind of the villain of the story, and but it's a wonderful, wonderful film. Crowd pleaser. I think it's the Green Book of this year, not in the sense that obviously it's totally different subject matter, but but I think it's a movie for everyone. Everyone will like it. It's shot really well. It's a fun movie. There's drama in it that people will cling on to. It's a true story. So it's just one of those that's for everyone. So I really think anyone that watches this will like it. And with that being said, let's get into my top 5.
We're gonna make history. You ready?
I was born ready, Mr. Shelby. Hit it.
Got you something for you again.
We're best friends for most of our lives. There's nothing you can't tell me. Alice, wait.
All right, number 5. It's not based on a true story, but I'm sure it's stuff like this happens in the real world. It could be inspired by true events, but it's called Giant Little Ones. And what this film is about, it's about 2 teenage males going to high school together. They're popular swimmers at this high school. They're best friends. They throw a party, and when everyone's gone, they have an intimate act together. While one he's straight, thinks he's straight, but at the same time, he's starting to feel like more for his best friend. So he's struggling with his sexuality, but his best friend is playing it off like, oh, he was just drunk, that's the only reason. And then he actually lies to a lot of the other students about what happened that night, and that causes just, the one to really struggle now, struggling with his sexuality, but then kind of losing his best friend lying to other people about what happened and making him look bad and just throwing slander on his name. And so, it's a real struggle for him. And I really feel it. Played by Josh Wiggins. He was so good in this film. I feel so emotionally connected. Now, I'm heterosexual, but that doesn't even matter in the slightest. Like, I think anyone can connect to this, even if you have a best friend or if you had a best friend, and you can imagine what it's like if, something happened between the two of you and then they just completely lie about you and then your friendship just goes down the drain. And it's a coming of age story. There's just extra layers to it, and it's done so well. It's the first film I saw this year, and it's in my top 5 still to this day, like at the end of the year. And it was really unbelievable. I'm pretty sure no one's heard about it. I've not heard a single person utter this title ever this year at all. And I'm kind of confused why, because I think it's a really, really good film. It never went wide, so I just think it didn't do well enough to go wide, but really, really recommend this film. I hope you guys watch it and enjoy it. But anyway, let's get to my number 4.
Can change. What are you so afraid of?
Sounds like you had experience with somebody you really loved. Could be that simple. I suggest you just pay attention to who you're drawn to and don't worry too much about what to call it.
You let a half-naked boy with Down syndrome who has no idea how to get along in this world just slip out from under your nose. You two are close.
We are.
Well, then you'll figure out where he's at and you'll bring him back.
Are you following me? Maybe we could be friends and buddies, bro dogs, and chill. Have a good time.
All right, number 4, The Peanut Butter Falcon. Another film that just really wasn't talked about at all. But what it's about is Zach he's in a what do you call it, like he's in a care home. He is mentally challenged, but he watches these tapes every day of this wrestler, and he loves that. And he wants to meet this wrestler guy who has like training programs. So he wants to train with him, he wants to meet him. And so he escapes this home, and he ends up bumping into Shia LaBeouf. He bumps into Shia LaBeouf's character, and Shia LaBeouf finds out that he wants to do this, and so he decides, he's gonna take him on a journey, and he's gonna go along with him, and they become friends, and he's gonna get him to meet his favorite wrestler of all time. And yeah, so you follow him on this journey. But anyway, Shia LaBeouf is so good. Best performance of the year, in my opinion, by far. He wasn't nominated. He was talked about a little bit when Honey Boy first came out for his performance in Honey Boy, which he was so good in. I think probably Shia LaBeouf in this film is the best performance, and then Honey Boy is the second best performance. Like top 2 performances of the year, and he's not even nominated, and that's just extremely unfortunate because he's so good in these films. He's so believable. Yeah, in Honey Boy he plays his father, so maybe you could say it was a little easier because he lived with it, but it's not easy. You could tell like just what he was playing. He was emotionally connected, obviously, but in this film, he's so grounded. He plays this character so well, and there's so many good moments. This is another one that I think could be a crowd pleaser, just people don't really know about it. Even like a lot of critics do talk about it and love it, and then the other half just haven't seen it. But anyone who's seen it, they love it. It's a very heartwarming story. Zach Gottsagen is so good in this film. He's just such a lovable guy. And Dakota Johnson even. I'm not the biggest fan of Dakota Johnson. I did like her in Bad Times in El Royale. She was good, but this film, she's really good. Really good chemistry with Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf, really good chemistry with Zach, and all 3 of them together were really good. So that being said, that's my number 4, and let's move on to my number 3.
I think it's time for us to go back now.
We could be a family.
Friends are the family you choose.
Wrestlers got alter egos. You need a name.
Falcon. Peanut butter Falcon!
Thanos did exactly what he said he was going to do. He wiped out 50% of all living creatures.
Number 3, Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame. I don't think there's really much I need to say about it, but what I will say is why it's so high is because just the cultivation of 23 films and the continuity between all 23 to the extent is a TV series played out in theaters and in film. I don't think anyone will ever do it again unless Marvel does it again, starting out now this phase 4 and fleshing this out. But I don't think anyone will be able to do this again, to just be able to really help you connect with their characters, these fake fictional characters, but you feel so much for them, and there is deeper meaning to it. I know with everything that like Martin Scorsese said, that they're not real film or whatever, that they remind them of theme parks. I disagree with that. I think a lot of people do. A lot of people probably agree with them, but I think there's so much to these films. Now, yeah, they're very formulaic. A lot of them are kind of the same, but when you got to Infinity War and Endgame, I think they did something transcendent to superhero films in general, and how difficult it is. The Russo brothers, they've made 3 films now where they've had like 40 characters that they had to work with, where they had to give dialogue, and they had to make them all integral to the story. Like, you know how tough that is. You know why no other films have 40 different characters that in their films? Because it's difficult. It's so hard to do, and to make a good movie. But they do it. They do it, and they do it so well. And this one was so sad. I'm just emotionally connected to it because 23 films again in the making, and I love them all. So this one had to be on my list, and it ended up at number 3.
This is gonna work, Steve.
I know it is. Because I don't know what I'm gonna do if it doesn't.
Dude, she needs a therapist. You've been wanting out of this stupid relationship for like a year now.
And don't forget about all of the beautiful Swedish women you'll meet in June.
Okay, guys. That's not her again. Seriously?
Babe, what's happening? Danny.
All right, number 2, Midsommar or Midsommar. I can't even really give a good synopsis to this, so I'm just gonna literally read the one that's typed here, which is a couple travels to Sweden to visit a rural hometown's fabled midsummer festival. What begins as an idyllic retreat quickly devolves into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult. Now, if that doesn't interest you, then you're probably 12. Honestly, if it doesn't interest you, then you probably won't like the film. But if you hear that and you're like, that's interesting, you're gonna love this film. Ari Aster is phenomenal. If you watched Hereditary and you really loved that and the direction, you're gonna love this film. I think this film is better than Hereditary. A lot of people may disagree with me, but Ari Aster is just, I'm just gonna be watching him forever because he's so good. The way that he makes his films and directed, they're so on point. Florence Pugh is so good in this film. Even Will Poulter is in it as like the douchebag, and it's very disturbing. It's a very disturbing film. It's definitely not for everyone, but for me, I was really intrigued with it. An original story, I guess not the most original story, but it's done in an original way, and it's all done during daylight, and it still freaks you out. Still intense. You still don't know what's gonna happen next, and you're just glued to the screen the entire way. It was my #1 film all the way up until November. That might give away what film is my #1, but all the way up until November when I saw this film, and this became my #1. But before we get into that, again, I'm gonna just show you my last 5 honorable mentions that were in my top 10 at some point, kind of near the end of the year, but just all ended up kind of sliding out. So here we go.
I don't know why you invited us.
That's why you look so guilty right now, because you know.
We only do this every 90 years. I was most excited for you to come.
There is a bomb in Centennial Park. You have 30 minutes.
I don't know how to protect you.
I think your client is guilty as hell.
They want to fry you.
You ready to start fighting back?
There is one guilty party behind it all.
You know something. Spill it.
Oh my God.
Tell me what happened to my grandfather.
I think you have something you want to tell me.
There are some natures too lofty to bend.
But now I realize it's a comedy.
Do you want to see my face?
What I love about Nicole, she is a mother who plays, really plays.
What I love about Charlie, he loves being a dad. He loves all the things you're supposed to hate, like waking up at night.
She knows when to push me and when to leave me alone.
He never lets other people keep him from what he wants to do.
Dad, you're too far.
I know. It's not easy for her to close a cabinet.
He's incredibly neat.
She's brave.
He's brilliant. He's
She's
very
very
competitive.
All right, so my #1 Marriage Story. And man, this film is so beautiful. So what it really is about, it's about a married couple. One is a director on Broadway in New York, and he's about to get his next play on, or he's not a director for Broadway yet, but he's a director for theater in New York, and his newest his newest script is about to go into, his newest play is about to hit Broadway. And then you have Scarlett, which is played by Adam Driver. Then you have Scarlett Johansson, and she has been featuring now in his plays, but she originally was a TV actress in LA, and that's where her family is. And now, you know, it's a story of them who, they love each other so much, but there's just a hole that they really can't fill in their relationship. And so what starts off as like an amicable breakup and split turns into kind of like a lawyer and custody battle between the two of them. And I've told so many people, this is one of the most emotionally pure films I've seen ever. It can be sad if you've gone through divorce and it affects you heavily. This might not be the film for you. From what I read in reviews, I haven't gone through divorce. My parents are married still to this day, so I don't know what it's like. But it seems from people that have gone through it, it is very realistic, very grounded, and it brings back memories of that. So you know, if that's something that you can't get past, this is not going to be the film for you. But I think it's done very well. It's shot very well, very believable dialogue. You know, I've gone through a breakup of someone I was with for 5 years, and a respectable breakup where you still love the other person, but there's just, you know, it's time to move on type of situation. And it's hard and it's tough, and this film shows that. You know, you see no animosity between the two for most of the film, and even when there is, you can tell it's just out of pure anger in the moment and not what they really mean. And it's just such a beautiful film that I recommend everyone see. It's on Netflix. It's free to see for anyone that has Netflix. So please go watch that. If it sounds interesting, again, if that sounds like something that might affect you too heavily, then maybe it's not for you. But yeah, that is my #1 film of the year. That is my top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And what's your top 10? Let me know in the comments. Let me know, you know, if you completely disagree with any of mine. If, you know, the reason why, you know, Joker wasn't in there was just, it's a great film. Joaquin Phoenix is amazing. I feel like I just have to go over this just because probably everyone's like, why is Joker not in there, or like hates that. But Joaquin Phoenix, the best actor. He's gonna win Best Actor. He should. It was phenomenal. I mean, doing what he did is so tough. And in case you don't know, that whole laughing uncontrollably is a real disease. I know a lot of people don't know that, or a real disorder, I should say, a neurological disorder. I forgot what it's called, but people actually have this where they laugh so much and they can't control it, to where it hurts, and you can see that played out so well on screen, and he's so good. The film's so well directed, but it's just one of those where there's just something in there that didn't click as a whole entire film for me. But it's also one of those films where, even though I feel that way, I cannot tell you a moment in the film that I would take out, because it's just so well done. But it didn't hit me in a way where it made my top 10. But it almost did. It's like my 12th favorite film of the year. So anyway, there's my explanation for that. Anyway, I hope you guys had a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.